Number 5. The babysitter killer, also known as the Oakland County child killer, is responsible for the murders of at least 4 children. The killer was active between 1976 and 1977, in Oakland County, Michigan. The murders took place during a 13-month period, causing panic in southeastern Michigan. During this time, children would not be let out of their houses without a parent or guardian present, and the few who were allowed to go out without their parents had to do so in a large group, where everyone could see them. The babysitter killer's first known victim was 12-year-old Mark Stebbins. He went missing on February 15 and his body was found just 4 days later. He was found laid out on a snowbank with the same outfit that he had on the day he went missing. He had been strangled and sexually assaulted. The next 3 victims were all found fully clothed and in plain sight. Although law enforcers brought in many suspects for questioning, they were never able to tie anyone to the crime. The case was reopened in 2012. Number 4. Jack the Stripper is the nickname of a serial killer who was active in London between 1964 and 1965. The reason why his given name is so similar to that of Jack the Ripper's is because their victimology is so alike. Like Jack the Ripper, Jack the Stripper murdered prostitutes. He murdered between 6 and 8 prostitutes and then dumped their bodies into the River Thames. Jack the Stripper's first known victim was named Hannah Telford. Her body was found in February 1964. She had been strangled and some of her teeth were missing. When the second body was found around where Hannah had been dumped, 57-year-old Kenneth Archibald confessed to the 2 murders. However, police dismissed his confession when he failed to remember certain facts about the killings and when a third body was found. A total of 3 more bodies were found that seemed to match Jack the Stripper's murders. Around this time, John DeRouse, the head of the investigation, held a press conference announcing that their pool of 7,000 suspects had gone down to 20, then 10, and finally 3. After this, the killings inexplicably stopped and Jack the Stripper got away with murder. Number 3. Stoneman is India's most notorious serial killer. He is believed to have committed 13 murders in Calcutta, and a possible dozen more in Bombay. Stoneman's first victim was found in June of 1989. The victim was a homeless man who was sleeping alone in a dimly lit area. He was killed by being bashed over the head with a stone. Over the next 6 months, 12 more homeless victims would be killed in the exact same fashion. In 1985, there were a dozen homeless people murdered in Bombay, in the same way that would eventually be occurring in Calcutta. This led authorities to believe that the same person was committing the murders, but they couldn't be sure that the original killings hadn't inspired a copycat killer. The police brought in a number of suspects but weren't able to charge anyone with the murders. However, the killings came to a halt after the suspects were brought in for questioning, leaving many to believe that the real killer was part of the group of suspects that the authorities questioned. Number 2. The original Night Stalker was active in the late 1970s and early 1980s, in Contra Costa County. His first victims to ever be reported were Dr. Robert Hofferman and his girlfriend, Deborah Alexandra Manning. The couple was shot and killed in their home on December 30, 1979. During the next 7 years, the original Night Stalker took 7 more victims, all by breaking into their homes, where he would kill them. Around the same time as the original Night Walker killings were going on, San Francisco was being terrorized by the East Area Rapist. This man would break into the homes of women and then rape them. He managed to do this 50 times. In 2001, investigators made a miraculous discovery using DNA testing. They discovered that the original Night Stalker and the East Area Rapist were in fact the same person. Thankfully, this serial killer/rapist has crime stopped in 1986, leaving many to believe that he either died or was imprisoned for another crime. Number 1. The Zodiac Killer is arguably the most infamous, unidentified serial killer of all time. He was active in Northern California in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Although the Zodiac Killer claims to have murdered 37 people, investigators have only been able to link him to 5 deaths and 2 injuries. The Zodiac Killer's first known victims were Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday. They were found on December 20, 1968. The couple were on their first date and were planning on attending the Christmas concert at Hogan High School. Instead, the couple decided to visit a friend and then they made their way over to a gravel turnout that was well known as Lover's Lane. That's when they came into contact with the Zodiac Killer. Investigators believe that the killer exited his car and made his way over to the couple's car. He then ordered them to exit their own car. Jensen seems to have exited first, but when Faraday attempted to exit, the killer shot him in the head. When Jensen tried to flee from the killer, he shot her as well. The Zodiac Killer would go on to claim 5 more victims. During his killings, the Zodiac Killer would send letters to the police, taunting them. He would make demands, give them cryptograms to solve in order to reveal his true identity, and he would tell them about upcoming attacks. His final letter concluded with this: me equals 37, SFPD equals 0. A number of people were suspected to be the Zodiac Killer, but nothing ever came of it. A few people have even confessed to the crimes, while other children have come forward claiming that their father or stepfather was the real Zodiac Killer. However, none of these claims came with much evidence to back them up, meaning that the Zodiac Killer has yet to be identified.